Right, testing. 1, 2. I'm going to check something out. See how long it takes for me to pop up on a screen after I've gone live. I don't think it shows up until 8 flat, but I'm going to test this. If you guys are out there and you can see me or hear me yet, type something in chat and let me know you can. I don't think I'm live yet. Uh-oh. There I am. Boom. I am on. It worked. Holy cow. All right, I think this worked. Beautiful. All right, sweet. Welcome to Common Mansplaining, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. Welcome. It is good to be back in the saddle. Christian should be here any moment. I don't know where he's at. He should be on. I don't know what he's doing. He said that he was back from work about 20 or 30 minutes ago, so he should be back and able to join in relatively. Here he is. Boom. Look at that. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Boom. Christian, what's up? How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, man. Look, it's good to be back, guys. Welcome back, everybody. Man, vacations are always like, I don't know. It's like you have to have them to get away from like normal life.
Mm-hmm.
But then by the end of the vacation, it's like you need a vacation from the vacation. You know, it's like you have to come back because it's like first I go stir crazy because I've always been a kind of a workaholic. You know,
yeah,
Like for those of you guys who watch me, you know, I don't have to do this, right? Like I've got other jobs. Obviously, this doesn't make us any money. So like, obviously we have to do other stuff, which, you know, if you guys want to make it so that it makes us money, the more people you share this with, the more this gets around, the more we can make this a career eventually. But yeah, like I'm part of it's that I'm working. Part of it's Joe. It's like, I don't know. Being cooped up with family all in the same house and you know.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between a vacation is without kids. With kids, it's a trip.
Right. It's like it's a vacation for the children. For me, it's a work so that I can provide a vacation for the children, right? You know, and then thankfully my kids were great. I got to say, we went to the beach and it was, oh man, it was gorgeous. The temperature was flawless all week. The water was gorgeous. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I go in the Atlantic and it's like, you know, even though it's 90 degrees outside, it's still like 70, 60, 70 degrees in the water, which is cold, you know, like bitter. You can get used to it, but like you don't want to, you know. But like this time it was perfect. All week long it was just flawless. Everything was gorgeous. So it was great, which figures, right? Because while I'm having fun, the rest of the world goes nuts. Literally, the moment I leave, right? I'm in this to like, you know, share the news with people to talk about politics, and like literally the moment I'm like, all right, I'm going on vacation, and it's like World War III.
Yeah,
like literally, people were calling it World War III. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is I don't really count it as a world war until at least 2 near peer major military forces are involved, right? So like in order for me to consider it a world war, it has to be at least United States and like Russia or China plus, right? Like
Germany, right? You know, somebody who's competent, right?
Yeah, not just I guess you could have like a lot of
takes the military serious. Yeah,
it would need to be like United States versus Europe or something, you know, like it couldn't just be like United States versus France. That would be a nothing. But yeah, like it can't just be Israel versus Iran. It would have to be like Israel versus Iran plus Russia plus us plus, you know, then it's a world war. Right now, this stuff was just like pity pat.
Well, yeah, I refrained from doing my shows from talking about Iran too much. If you watched the content of my lives, if you haven't, go back and watch them. There was a little bit of comment from some of our people about Iran, but I'm like, let's just wait. I'll talk about this with Eddie. Stuff's going to happen. I just felt like we needed that people would get too wrapped up in this, and then that there'd be a lot of switch and turns. I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the media, as soon as we bombed Iran, all took off, you know, so that they can report live on the scene in Iran, and then they land, and it's like ceasefire. What? It's
We're
like
done.
what? I just got here. Like they wanted to be, they wanted to be a lot more than that, and so we'll see where it goes from now. I mean, obviously, Trump would like to be limited. He just wants to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions.
Right.
And use air power. He doesn't want to put troops on the ground. He's not interested in governing, or we're not interested in ruling Iran.
Right.
We just want them to be peaceful and not attack us and their neighbors. It's not a lot to ask.
It is not a lot to, well, you would think, right? You would think
common sense, yeah.
Of course, we're using a different type of logic than is typically employed in the Middle East, which, to be fair, they have a blood feud that's been going on for, going on 2,000 years now. So it's not like
between the Persians, not between the Persians. The Persians are really, that's why it's this minority, violent Muslim minority that has ruled Iran, Persia as a tyranny since 1979. Yeah. And it's nice. They're at a weaker point than they've ever been. Yeah. That was sort of one of the points. That before they had Hezbollah, they had Syria, the Houthis. All of that stuff's gone. And they don't even have Russia. Russia couldn't really support Syria anymore. Russia's got to dedicate all of its stuff to Ukraine. Yeah. Putin can say whatever he wants. Yeah, right. But, and then maybe he'll send Iran some oil, like they need it or whatever. Yeah. But all of his military attributes are tied up in the Ukraine.
Yeah. And of course, even if you were to, I think actually, believe it or not, I think maybe the reason that we got involved in the first place was probably the biggest advantage to it was to warn everyone else off. Right. Like, because if it's Israel versus Iran, people were toying with the idea of Russia throwing them some arms, China helping out, Pakistan maybe or something like that. But like the moment America is in the thing, then it's not like, oh, we're not all just ganging up on Israel. Then it's like, oh, crap. It's, it's America. Like, let's just, steer clear. That was my thought when I went into it. Now, to be fair, and I want to get your impressions on this a little bit later into the thing, but I was not a fan of the strike, to be fair, like in the abstract. Now, in this particular situation, in this particular, like the way it ran out, the way Trump had executed it, I think it was probably as good as it could be, Yeah. But, and it don't get me wrong, it definitely had a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of at the point where I think we need to cut Israel loose. Not because I don't agree with the things that they're doing, but because I think that we need to make sure that the world knows that we aren't just everything Israel does, like that we have got our own set of values and stuff. Because I think, like I said, I think Israel probably had to do this. I don't think they could take the chance, right? Like I don't think they had, if you're Israel, right, and you're staring down the barrel of, governments that have attacked you without provocation or reason, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but like 6 or 7 times.
Hundreds of times. I mean, if you can't have rocket, but many times.
But
and
if you're
that guy, then,
if you're in that spot, then you can't just like let it be like, oh, now they have a nuke and hypersonic ability from Russia, right? Like you can't let that just slide, right? I don't know.
Well, all right. So my take on that is this is a bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
i.e., Bill Clinton, on the record, Iran will not be, it is the position of the United States, Iran will not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Yep. Reiterated by George Bush. Reiterated by Barack Obama. Reiterated by Donald Trump. Reiterated by Joe Biden. And again, now Trump is in the position. So Israel doesn't have these 30,000-pound bombs. Right. And so Trump, I think, was willing to, they made the case, hey, we're just targeting nuclear facilities.
Right.
This is a stated position of the U.S. This isn't new policy. This isn't like, oh, the U.S. doesn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That's news to me. It is not news. It's old news. established position. So Trump was like, okay, we're going to do it, but, I'm not committing that we're going to do anything else. Right. Again, sort of what you're saying that, and it sent a message that as far as the U.S. is involved, that they will target Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Right.
Anything else, he's like, I don't care about regime change. I don't care about any other hostilities. Let Israel and the Middle East now. Right, with Hamas weakened, with Hezbollah weakened, with Syria not under Iran's control, right? So it was all on Iran, right? We could dedicate it, and it kind of exposed them, right?
Right.
Iran has learned why we don't have free healthcare in America.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's because our military, because all of a sudden, boom, they have no anti-aircraft anymore, right? I mean, we flew B-2s over there, but you can fly an F-15s at 12 o'clock at noon, and nobody's going to do anything about it because so when we want to, airspace is ours, right?
So,
so I think that sort of, you're a Republican Guard or whatever, sort of exposed them like, look, you're playing with the big boys now. You don't have your threats, Russia empty threats, like boom, your defenses are gone.
Yeah.
We will do whatever we want. We will drop whatever we want, whenever we want. And then we'll fly drones and other subsonic aircraft in our airspace just because we feel like it. But we're not committing troops. Trump was very adamant to have this a ceasefire, but establish the thing like, hey, if you persist in trying to develop a nuclear weapon, which they still have the capability, if they're going to be obstinate about it, we have this established precedent. They're not going to be shocked if we continue to bomb that. And for me, that's why I feel like it wasn't against civilians. It wasn't Tehran, right? These facilities were out in the middle of nowhere, right? That I didn't have a problem with at all. Now, certainly, Iran wants to make a lot of threats. That's a very Persian, Middle Eastern sort of cultural thing. But I think the rest of the Middle East is with us. I think Saudi Arabia would rather deal with Israel than Iran, right? And I think definitely UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait are all certainly on our side. Jordan probably. So, and Hamas is not in a position to do anything, right? So like, who's gonna come to Iran's aid right now? Nobody.
Yeah. So I mean, all right. So let's lay that all out on the line, right? So Christian just discussed a lot of good reasons to make this strike, and there are others too, right? For example, like one thing I'd mention is that there's very rarely a circumstance in warfare where you have three juicy targets like this. Like usually people don't put all their eggs in one basket, like this is a rare situation where it's like, oh wow, all we have to do is hit these exact 3 points and we can completely, in theory, right? We didn't work out the way we hoped, but completely wipe out an entire nuclear capability, right? Like it's rare that we have everything kind of all lined up together. Strategically, the strike was a massive success. Like tactically, it was very well executed. The decoy, it was funny, before it happened, I saw that there was like people were reporting online like, oh, B-2s are being moved to Guam. And I'm like, no, they're not. I was like, no, they're not. And I mean, I thought that was so obvious, but I guess it wasn't. Like the media was fooled. They're like, B-2s are moving east. I'm like, yeah. Like they forgot literally the very first line of The Art of War is all warfare is based on deception. Like Sun Tzu knew his stuff. So now that's one good thing. Now the other thing too is we had these bunker busters, these massive bombs that Israel didn't have. So we had the only capabilities. There's a lot of other little reasons, right? Like, so strategically, but while it's a bipartisan issue, like the one side always wanted to kind of negotiate Iran down. Like they kind of wanted to like talk them into submission, saying like, here, we're going to just get you to agree to your own decommissioning of nuclear war, which never worked, right? Like they were always evasive. They were always like hiding things. They never submitted to our detection programs. And so, of course, the other side's like, look, like, no, the way we're going to do this is by removing all of your money so that you can't develop those things. And that was by far the more effective way of approaching this. And so, since I think we had this problem with American, politics oscillating back and forth, we kind of had to do something to address them. If we were committed to no nuclear program for Iran, we didn't really have any other choice at this point because we couldn't just go back to like talking them down, right? Because now it's too late now, and we can't just like go back to sanctions because again they've already got the money, they've already got the enriched uranium, and so there are a lot of good reasons for this strike to take place. Now, my two biggest reasons to against this are philosophical in nature. One is that we should sever ourselves from Israel, who has at this point in time, I think, safely been the provocateur in this situation, right? Like,
you think that they've been the provocateur with Iran?
Well, I mean, you can't like it's one of those things where I don't think you can count every rocket. You can't count every proxy group simply because every group's got their own game plan, right? Like, and I think it's safe to say that Hezbollah is Iranian, but like they were already eliminated, right? Hamas is Iranian. Houthis are Iranian, but like these are all front groups, right? They're not Iran proper, right? They're not the government of Iran. And so in this situation, I think one thing that I think Israel really needs to get in the habit of, or they're going to lose all of their like political capital, their geopolitical capital, they've got to start bringing everybody else on board first. And I know that sucks because that you lose the element of surprise and things like that, but
deception,
for them to actually, they don't need deception, and we don't either, for that matter, to accomplish our military aims. They're just so much stronger than everybody else, and even Iran, who's probably the second strongest in the area. They're just so much more powerful that all they really need is the will of the globe before they do it. Because what they're doing is they're winning victory after victory after victory and losing this like global media battle over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that they should necessarily be on the back foot, as far as the way that people perceive them, but they are. Whether or not they should be, they are. Now, my second complaint...
I agree there's a perception issue against Israel.
Right. Now, the second issue I have is just purely philosophical in nature. I don't believe that any nation has the right to tell any other nation what weapons they can and can't have. That's just all like pure stop. Now, of course, that all changes if they use them in a negative way, right? If they go out shooting somebody, then it's like, okay, now you've lost that right. But until Iran, like think about it, every other nation on earth that has nukes has them, right? China's our enemy. We don't have a problem with them having nukes. Russia's our enemy. We don't have a problem with Russia having nukes. North Korea's our enemy, and we know they're bad news, and we don't have any problem with them having nukes. It's all of a sudden, it's like Iran is a problem, but literally, out of all the nations on earth, we're the only person to have ever used them.
All right. So I'm going to mansplain a little bit of history.
Yeah, hit us with
it. Every country in Europe would have nukes if not for treaties, nuclear proliferation treaties, that discourage the other countries from doing this, from everybody having their own nuclear program. Right. Australia, every country was going to do this. Because, and the consensus is that, like you said, anybody can have any conventional weapon they want, and nobody can tell them not to. But nuclear weapons are different, because when you use nuclear weapons, it not only damages that country, potentially there's environmental or world or other effects that would involve peaceful parties that are not part of whatever said conflict, right? And it's because we use them, because they've never been used, and they're so effective in their use, everybody agreed, okay, like even countries that were great, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, who got dominated by the Soviets, like could have developed their own nuclear weapons to keep the Soviets out. Right? Ukraine, wish they created their own nuclear thing so that they could have border integrity, stuff like that.
Right.
All this stuff were agreed. Now, North Korea, we definitely have a problem with that. Right? They're facing unbelievable sanctions for violating this non-proliferation. Like, we were respecting their stuff. They didn't need to have nuclear weapons. Nobody was invaded. Nobody wanted to rule North Korea. We were leaving the Hermit Kingdom alone. They developed these things, and they were getting punished for it. The world community is punishing them.
Right.
So I wouldn't be as I wouldn't be as glib as to say that we're okay with that, or that we're even okay with Russia. We've had so many treaties to try to bring down the number of arms that we have, that Russia has, that we would rather have that down. But there's a big push if we don't address seriously a country like Iran, then there's going to be another global arms race. Everybody in the Middle East will have to have nuclear weapons. Every other country that's got 5 cents will, start developing their own nuclear weapons. But the treaties don't mean anything. And Iran did agree to these things. It was a previous government, but so the fact that they are seeking and trying to actively bypass this agreement is the number one reason to justify, if we sort of known North Korea was doing that, it would have justified attacks against them. Like India and Pakistan did their tests in secret. We know Iran is doing this. Where they're doing that, we have really good intelligence. Israel's really good intelligence in Iran, and it's too volatile a situation.
Yeah,
I just think because of that, it's just that the crux of the matter is nuclear weapons are different. Any other conventional weapon, have any type of tank, any type of other missile or a weapon system, but nuclear weapons, you need to prove that you're willing to use them and abide by, sort of world norms.
This government hasn't been given that chance, though, right? This Iranian government, the Ayatollahs, haven't been given that chance, right?
Yeah, they've been told.
You're talking about a situation
but everybody's been told. Everybody's been told and agreed to not create nuclear weapons.
Well, hold on. When you say that again, that what you're doing is you're addressing my point by like skipping right past it, right? Like, because my point is that full stop, nobody has the right to tell anybody else what. Now, to be fair, I don't mind nations agreeing themselves to it, right? Like, I have no problem with America and Russia saying, hey, look, we both have 6,000 nukes. Let's both bring it down to 5,000 nukes, right? Got no problem with that if they agree to that. But I do have a problem with somebody like going over to Congo, who's never been a part of these treaties, and saying, I'm sorry, you can't defend yourself this way, right? That's just, from a philosophical standpoint, I'm not okay with us dictating the way that other nations have their own self-determination.
And that's fair, like, because if the other country says "F you," right, they're at the end of the day can choose that. Of course, we're essentially saying, if you do that, that will trigger us. We will use military intervention to stop you. So we're just declared our position.
But in that case, then we should be attacking North Korea. We should be attacking Pakistan. We should be attacking Israel. Israel has clandestinely gotten nukes. They've had them for a long time, probably 50 years or so, and we all know it, right? Like, we don't go and inspect their stuff, but so it's not fair to treat only one nation differently. It's kind of
No, they're not treated like a nuclear power. They're not treated like a nuclear power, and that was part of the agreement too, that they not be declared and get all the rights of a nuclear power.
Right.
Okay.
Now, so, don't get me wrong, because like I understand that Iran is different too, right? Like, in addition to nuclear powers being different, Iran is different. But I just from a just a principle. I just don't feel like any nation has the right to dictate to any other nation the way that they defend themselves. Now, I think that we would hope that they don't have nuclear arms, but to be fair, like if putting yourself in Iran's shoes for just a brief moment, again, Israel's vastly more powerful. How else would they defend themselves against Israel?
Well, Israel doesn't want to attack Iran. They don't want to conquer Iran. They have no interest in Iran other than stopping Iran from attacking them. Right. Israel hates them because they're a Jewish state, or Iran hates Israel because they're a Jewish state.
Sure.
Right.
And vice versa.
And funds opposition groups and targeting them. Israel has no interest in Persia and Iran other than stopping their aggression.
Yeah, they don't want to. Well, let's say Israel as a government doesn't. I'm sure that there are certain groups of people in each government that are different. But yeah,
you think Israel wants to conquer and rule Iran?
No. They certainly don't want to conquer it. They certainly don't. But I don't think that Israel would mind having to eliminate it, right? Like they wouldn't probably go out to do it. They wouldn't like seek to do it. But if it happened, like by happenstance, they got into a war and like were forced to wipe Iran out, I don't think they'd mind. I don't think they'd be like, "Oh, boo-hoo, we really miss them." You know what I'm saying? Like, not in like a. I'm being a little bit flippant about it, but you get what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like Israel wants to rule over Gaza by the same vein, right? But the fact that Gaza has presented them with an opportunity to wipe Gaza out is kind of convenient for them. It's not like they don't. It's not like they're going to be sadder if Gaza is gone. Does that make sense? Like we're in the same place.
Maybe sadder. Maybe we shouldn't put emotions in countries.
Well, okay,
but because we should talk about the interests. All right, what does Matthew want to talk about? All right, Matthew, what do you want to talk about?
The only thing I saw from Matt was "sup, bruh." Maybe I'm missing.
Yeah, tell us what you want us to talk about, Matt.
But yeah, like to like. And now, an analog for this would be like North Korea. Like we're not looking to conquer North Korea. We're not looking to get into a war with them. But if North Korea were to go do something stupid and we had to, wipe them out and regime change it, nobody's going to miss Kim Jong-un. Like nobody's going to be like, "Oh no, we're so sad now that he's gone." No, we didn't see
here's the devil's bargain, Eddie. Here's the devil's bargain that nuclear countries agree to, right? Is that if they use nuclear weapons, they will be punished with either nuclear embargoes or they'll be bombarded. They will be attacked with nuclear weapons, right? Mm-hmm. So we are attacking Iran. We have nukes. It's like why not just nuke Iran? We're using conventional weapons in them because they're not a nuclear power, right?
Sure.
So, but if other nuclear powers, right? So we would only use nuclear weapons against other nuclear powers
if they're using them. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, if they're using them, and so it's like, all right, you're playing in the big boys now. We're not going, but we're deliberately, right, pulling our punches. We're just using conventional weapons. We're not trying to like decimate your population. We have specific military goals, and we're doing them in a way and even warning you and giving you a chance that you can surrender. You can there's still diplomatic options. Trump gave them a diplomatic option. They're obstinate. They don't want to do that. It's a pride thing for them. So it's like, all right, you can't stop us. We're going to do this, right? Maybe they'll learn. And part of the thing is, right, Japan had so much growth after we dropped those bombs on them because they were a humbled country. At their leadership, the emperor made huge push to humble himself, say he was just a man, right, and let them be a humbled power and not live right. And when we can do that, because we didn't want to rule Japan, we wanted them to again just be peaceful with their neighbors. Sure. This is all we want for Iran as well. We'd love to have Persian rugs, and we'd love to be able to go on vacations to Iran. Right?
But just so we're clear, there's a big difference between Japan driving 4,000 miles across the ocean to zap Pearl Harbor and end 4,000 lives, and Iran having a program that just as a byproduct has this stuff that could one day be turned into a different type of weapon.
No. Iran has a long track record of aggression.
Okay,
now,
but again, hold on. Again, you have to separate all that. You've got to separate Hezbollah and Hamas and Houthis from Iran. That is not the same thing. Just like you'd have to separate terrorist groups in North America from America. Like, just because some idiot right winger or left winger goes in, like Antifa goes out and does something
funded directly by Iran. The Iranian government funds these groups and has them act on their behalf. They are proxies.
Okay, so then here's the thing, though. In any situation where something like that happens, then that has to be the dilemma. That has to be what everything is centered around. We need to state it openly. Like, listen, Iran, here's the deal. If you fund X, Y, or Z, we'll attack you, period. And then live up to it. But we can't just say, like, we're kind of sort of, not cool with the way that you're handling things, but we're going to sanction you, and we're going to sanction you, we're going to sanction you. And then it's like, oh, you're developing this new weapon? Maybe, we're not even sure. And then we're going to attack. That's not the good reason to attack. A better reason to have attacked would have been just, hey, Israel's our ally. Sucks that you picked a fight with a really powerful, person with a really powerful ally. That would have been a better reason, like philosophically. But philosophically, I don't think we have any right to just go in and say, no, you can't have because it's not like nuclear power always means nuclear arms either, right? We're basically, not only are we taking away the nuclear arm capability, we're also taking away their ability to give themselves energy using a nuclear program, right? It's not just
all right. All right. That's you're reading their propaganda right now.
I'm reading everything. I read everything.
Right. Because the world INEL whatever investigators who are by no means a right-wing group, right, have determined that their enrichment activities far surpass what's needed for energy capability, right? And it found them in violation that their enrichment activities, if they wanted to be peacefully just creating energy, we would do that. We would roll with that.
Okay, right? Again,
the independent world inspectors have found that their enrichment activities are clearly surpassing that and going towards weapons capability. Right?
Yeah, but weapons capability, let's just be clear, weapons capability isn't weapons program. Those are not the same thing. Having the ability to do something,
because we're stopping them when they try to turn it into a weapons program. Israel would bomb them. We would bomb them. We would target them and not allow them when they would make attempts to create a weapons program. Right? The enrichment is the first part. Once they have this enrichment, which is more than they need if they just wanted to do nuclear energy, then that has triggered, and legally by the world standards, when they're in violation of that, hey, you are taking this to a point where the only reason you'd be doing this is for weapons, that we are going to, you are in violation. We were that's going to trigger our military action to target your weapons programs.
Okay, let's talk about this aspect of it, because I think this is really important. And I want to clear up why the strike was good and why it was bad too. But one of the problems that I'm having with it is I don't think that we should, as a government run by the people, right? I don't think that we should have so much secrecy in the way that we conduct foreign policy, right? I think that one of the problems here is that basically this is a decision that's made as a split-second decision by a single man, which is fine if it's truly an emergency, right? If we truly feel that there's an emergency involved. But the thing is before that emergency comes in, there should have been a lot of buildup to earn the will of the American people behind this too, because I think only half of us bought into it, right? Like the other half is like, why are we out there striking? Why are we involved at all? Why aren't we helping Israel? Why are we doing like, there's a lot of whys, right? And don't get me wrong, some of them can be answered, but like one of the problems is like, if we have a problem with Iran as a nation, if we do, right? If Iran is routinely doing things like, they're creating terrorist programs, or they're funding, you know, the Houthis, or they're funding the Hezbollah, or they're funding whatever, right? If they're doing stuff like that, we need to be already bought in before a split-second decision like this is made. We should already be at the point where it's like, hey, look, Iran is a problem. We need to attack Iran. Everybody should already be there. And then it should be like, oh crap, they have nuclear capability. Now is the time to do it. But it shouldn't be like all of a sudden we have to go through this whole like this is why we should do it. This is why we maybe shouldn't do it. We should have already passed that decision-making point and gotten to the point where we're like, look, we need to be at war with Iran, period, because they're doing all of these bad things. And then if we're going to be at war with them for doing all these bad things, we should just go ahead and be at war with them. There's no reason to like, I don't understand why it's just this one thing. And like,
all right. Yeah. So again, right. My point early on was that this was a bipartisan, the first top person to make a statement that we will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon was Bill Clinton. It was also repeated by George Bush, who called them the axis of evil, and that it was the United States opinion, position, right? Giving plenty of time. Everybody can debate, the whole country can know what's going on. But he reiterated, Iran will not be allowed. It is a strategic military. Now, there might be more intelligence that's classified that I'm not privy to, but that was stated by the president. Then the next president, who was not of the same party, Barack Obama, said the same thing, right? Sure. And you said he went about it a different way, but he did say ultimately it was a red line for Iran to have nuclear weapons. Trump said he negotiated differently with Iran, but I'm
sorry.
And then Joe Biden. So this is. I'm not saying this is a split-second decision. The American public have a long time to understand that Iran, our opposition to Iran's nuclear weapons program, has a long history, a lot of research. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of for years and years, I'm sure there are lots of people who are dedicated to this idea that are advising the president. Now, how he advised, he did offer a diplomatic solution and a hope for that. He realized from the advice of national security advisors that I'm not privy to those briefings. Right. He acted, faster than okay, we're going to give you 2 weeks to do this. He did it faster based on their advice. But this is not the type of thing where that anybody's shocked that the U.S. opposes this. He's been very apparent about this. The U.S. has been very transparent about this.
Clear though, there's a difference between saying that you're going to do something, right, and like it being the right thing to do, right? In the abstract, I have a problem with the concept.
From the beginning, you think the policy from the beginning was wrong?
Yes, I think from the beginning it is not okay to tell another nation what they can and can't do as long as that other nation is not infringing upon your rights, right? If they're not attacking you, they're not doing something. Now, if they are, then all bets are off. And then you should do it because they're attacking you, not because they have this thing, right? Then it should be, we're going to fight you because you're fighting us. And then everyone can get behind that. I feel like if everyone understands, like, look, they're attacking us, and so we're going to attack them back, that's normal, right? Everyone can get behind that. But not many people can get behind, we're going to attack them because because they have this thing.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Now this is not official. What I'm about to say is not official. These are sort of rumors that have been around for a long time.
Yes.
Right. When Israel, right after the Yom Kippur War, and essentially Israel had nuclear weapons, and they thought, hey, we'll just tell everybody that we have nuclear weapons, and then they'll leave us alone. We'll be peaceful, like they'll be. And the U.S. talked them down from that, right? Talked them down from that. Said that would create an arms race type of thing like that. So we're essentially allied with that. We told Israel we would have their back if they didn't assert themselves as a nuclear power, right? But the tacit agreement was if another Middle Eastern or Muslim nation got nuclear weapons and tried to use them on Israel, that Israel would then nuke the holy sites of Mecca, right, and Medina, to avoid that no Muslim could go on Hajj there, right?
Right.
And that was their sort of like, look, if you come at us, and these sort of horror scenarios of religious sort of war and tit for tat negotiations, kind of things like that, kind of scared everybody and walked back, right? Because Iran wasn't one of the nations that attacked Israel in that Yom Kippur War, right? Saudi Arabia was, Jordan was, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt. But it walked everybody back there like, holy crap, like, yeah, we don't want to have Mecca nuked and irradiated that nobody can go visit there for 1,000 years, right? But Iran doesn't care because the holy sites of Mecca aren't in Iran, right? So while everybody else kind of kept their like, I don't like Israel kind of stuff down, right? And Saudi Arabia didn't launch rockets. Iran had kept it up,
right?
And it's really our ally, right? Where we kind of have to show, look, we're going to back up Israel. We're going to do it through conventional means. And so to reassure that this isn't something that's going to trigger Israel wanting to bomb the holy sites of Islam, right?
Yeah.
That the targeting of Israel being because of a Jewish state, making this a holy war, they would respond in kind and desecrate their holy sites. These are right. So these are the type of negotiations that have been happening quietly, not openly, but have kept the things that everybody understands the threats are, but Iran doesn't care about them or doesn't treat them with the kind of respect everybody else does.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that is another good reason. One of the things that I considered, in my brother Matt was talking about this with me earlier. One of the reasons that we might have gone in and done this is because I think Israel's more interested in kind of a regime change war with Iran. This may have short circuited that. It may have actually been in a way counter to Israel's like kind of concept, right? Because in a way we can say, hey, look, you claimed that you wanted the nuclear capabilities taken care of. We've done that. Now you don't have a reason to fight anymore. Even though, of course, Israel might want to keep going, Iran might want to keep going, but now it's like, now we can stop, right? So it was, in a way, it was a way of trying to short circuit the fight, which I think Trump did effectively. Like, as far as that goes, I think he was able to manage the ceasefire. I think it was funny what happened afterwards, and he dropped the F-bomb and stuff. That was pretty hilarious. But one thing I want to say for the record too, I think this is important too, because this gets to the heart of like, you know, who started it and whose fault it is and stuff like that, because there's a lot of that going around. I'm just gonna say again, philosophically, for the record, for me, if somebody fires a rocket, they started it. Right? Like, because one of the problems that Israel gets a lot is people are shooting at them and they're intercepting it. And so people think that Israel shouldn't respond. Hell no. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. If you're being shot at with rockets, you can do whatever you need to do to get those rockets to stop firing. That's just my opinion. Now, I know people may not like that. I know that might be like a really hard line stance. But like when you're defending yourself, the game can't be like, oh, let's just keep on twiddling our thumbs until one gets through and kills some people and then we'll fight back. No, that's ridiculous, right? So like when this ceasefire went through, Iran fired a rocket, which Israel intercepted, and then Israel sent their bombers out, which Trump called back or whatever, which he really doesn't have the power to do. Again, him telling other nations what to do, but
because he's telling them, I've got your back, you don't need to do this.
Right, and that's
like, and here's the thing that you got to take into account too. How worried have you been about Iraq since Saddam Hussein left?
Not at all.
How right? And now that Bashar al-Assad's out of Syria, right? They're not a threat, really, right? For what we did to Afghanistan, even turning it back over to the Taliban, we're not worried about them as ever. And so I'm actually on board with regime change in Iran. Oh, yeah, I grew up in Southern California. I'm going to get my spicy take here. I knew a lot of peaceful Persians who left Iran after the Shah was deposed, when this tyrannical Muslim government, minority government, took over violently and has ruled Iran through tyranny since 1979. I am for regime change because I think the replacement, back with the Shah, a democratic, more liberal, westernized government, can live peacefully with their neighbors. And that's all we want. Right? We just want them to not be aggressive.
So again, this is like for me, this is a very philosophical thing, right? Like it sounds like you are a little bit more consequentialist than I am, a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm more neocon than you for sure.
To be fair, like I have no problem with changing the regime if the regime has done something to warrant regime change. Like if they've done something, attacked somebody, then that's the reason that we need to do it. And so like that's what I'm going for here. Like what I wanted us to do is
don't think that Iran has done enough to
what I'm saying is that needs to be the reason. It can't be other reasons. That needs to be it. We need to say Iran funded Hezbollah, therefore we are going to erase Iran, right? Or Iran did this, therefore we're going. It can't just be, well, they have this thing that might become a problem. That's a terrible reason.
Right. But we're not. Yeah, right. That would be if we were going to go to Congress and declare war against Iran. Right, which is what Congress wants. That would be the case. Would be yes. I'm saying Iran's government cannot stand. They've done this. These are their crimes. We need to have that government defeated, right, or surrender or leave power. Please declare war. This was not a declaration of war, right? So when you're just doing emergency police actions or whatever, right, they have to fall well short of the threshold of declaring war. So that's why it was targeted. It was. We were just targeting these nuclear facilities. We're not at war with Iran. We're not asking to declare a war in Iran. If we did, it would have to be the cases that you want. So I think that's the separation between, right, what we call ever since Vietnam, where you can do bombing, you can do targeted stuff, Libya, Iraq, whatever. But if you want to declare war. Right, for regime. If we want a regime change, this is why Trump says he's not for regime change. You go to Congress and ask to declare war.
Sure, right. Yeah, and I agree with that I agree with the separation of the war powers with regard to how far you go in a war. Probably, yeah, I do. But even the reason to attack, I think that gets more people bought in. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, the next thing I do kind of want to touch on that really quickly, and that is. What are your thoughts on somebody asked me the other day, they're like, what do I think about the strike? And I'm like, well, it's certainly within Trump's purview, right? And they argued with me for a long time on that. And I'm trying to figure out how in any world, but believe it or not, he's backed up by a lot of the left-wing media. So like I looked at him like, how is the argument that the president doesn't have the power to do this? I don't understand. Now, I don't know exactly what, constitutes, like, it's not really spelled out in the War Powers Act about, like, what constitutes emergency. As far as I know, the president determines that, right? Like, that's his constitutional ability. So,
it's generally, if you're going to have, right now, if you want to put troops on the ground and start building air bases, like Afghanistan, go to Congress, right? If you're just going to use air power, right, or a special strike and get out of there. You're not going to occupy territory. You're not taking, hostages or things like that. You're not trying to affect regime change or govern or create territory. Then long precedent. Reagan did targeted strikes. Bush won. Certainly Clinton a lot. Certainly George Bush. People disagreed, with the Iraq. In hindsight, because they didn't find the weapons of mass destruction that were used as a justification, but he went to Congress, right? He got a declaration of war, but there were attacks before that. Barack Obama certainly did extra attacks and using drone strikes to kill people, on foreign soil, even U.S. citizens on foreign soil without declaring war, right? Just using this emergency. Hey, I don't want a regime change, but this is a bad dude. Enemy of the U.S., it's in our interest, boom, right?
Right.
And so You cannot. I at least am skeptical of the opposition that it's not just related to anything Trump does is bad, because when there's a very viral video out there, maybe you've seen it. Bernie Sanders was giving a speech, all his supporters, and then in the middle of the talk, the people's phones started going off about this. They started reporting the attack.
Yeah.
And people started booing, Trump just attacked Iran. And Bernie Sanders, somebody comes out and brings him a statement that he's like, I'm going to read this statement Donald Trump made about, and he just reads Donald Trump's statement about we bombed Iran. And people are just booing, boo, before they've even heard, before they've had a chance to read anything, just that it was done by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They're against it. And so I'm very skeptical of that. Now, I obviously can be convinced if I have facts, but I just see the precedents for this type of limited strike, right, of being well established by precedent by presidents. Now, if he goes beyond this, go to Congress. If you want to have troops on the ground, if you want to affect change, if you want to rule Iran like we did Japan after World War II, go to Congress.
Right.
But for this, all right, Matt wants us to talk, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, City of Solitude says, so what makes a regime worth changing? According to what better than the U.S., what do you think you would say makes a regime worth changing?
Oh, interesting. So first off, I could probably just play you on record their leaders making statements about the U.S. and Israel. Their words alone would probably justify regime change. Now, right, their death to America, their death to Israel, their things like this. They're stated open, like by their official people, their official accounts, their official positions, mottos, whatever, are such as to warrant that kind of regime change. Now, culturally, this is part of, they say things a lot more strongly and try to do things to kind of show a way of getting respect or to be revered or something. It's very different from our culture, which is very understated. But they're stating their official positions towards us and Israel are probably enough to warrant a regime change. But their long history of acting violently outside their borders, right? Not only with Israel, but also with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia. They bullied Saudi Arabia so much, with Syria, and then trying to affect and create chaos in Hamas, Syria, and Beirut, Lebanon, just to try to harry the U.S., just to bog us down, not caring about human life. And then otherwise, then there's also their long history of brutalizing their citizens, right? Killing women just for showing their hair, walking around showing their hair, right? A very brutal interpretation of Islamic law, and it's and it's a rule of violence. It's not a rule that culturally we understand. But our aims are, we don't want to change everything about Iran. We just want them to stop being aggressive military jerks, which has been what they have done since 1979 when they took the U.S. Embassy, when they attacked the U.S. Embassy and took American citizens hostage, and have wanted to try to embarrass the U.S., act violent against us and our citizens, illegally arrest our citizens when they're ever trying to visit or do any legitimate tourism. And they don't have our sense of trying to play nice. And it's a cultural thing that I think we fail to appreciate sometimes.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on some of that stuff. I don't know if I would. I don't know. I guess the measures we take and the methodology that we use to change regime is important too, right? Like, I think if somebody's out there just saying, death to America or whatever, I'd be okay with a type of soft power regime change. I'd be all right with sending CIA, setting them up to go, like try to topple the government with one of their funded coups or whatever, trying to get them to use propaganda to like shift it. I wouldn't be okay with like military force in that situation, but I'd probably be all right with like, like a kind of a soft power. But if they attack us, at that point, I'm like, that's it. You just ended your own regime. Like if there's ever like you shoot an American base, I'm like, well, congratulations. Let me know who the next leader will be, because it's, like, but yeah, I mean, that's a good City of Solitude asks another good question, which is like, why do a lot of these nations get along with Russia and China, but not the United States? I think it's because we have a different value system. I mean, I think dictators kind of understand each other to a certain extent, like I think if you're the kind of person that rules with an iron fist, then you at least understand another person that rules with an iron fist like that. I think our democratic, Republican representative system is not gonna.
Yeah, we don't want to give foreign aid to countries that have brutal human rights records. Russia has no qualms about that.
Yeah.
China has no qualms about that. So now I do want to push back gently on your thing. Saying your point before, your point about
soft power regime change.
Soft power. So that was definitely our policy before 9/11.
Yeah.
Right. It's like these little powers say death to America. We didn't take them seriously, right? Because our military is so big. And even when they would attack our ships, like the USS Cole, or bomb our embassies overseas, like attack our military bases, kind of like, we didn't really even take them seriously. We kind of felt like, hey, at least they're attacking military targets. These guys signed up for that. That's why they're heroes. They made themselves targets, right?
Right.
And so we kind of like underestimated them because we knew, like, right, in the Iraq War, right, those guys were tripping over themselves to surrender to us, right?
Right.
That it was right. The story that was told virally was there was this line of tanks out in the desert, and they're blowing everything up. And then one of the tanks and they had every 2 miles. One of the tanks, all of a sudden, the gun jammed. They couldn't fire anything. And this Iraqi tank starts coming towards them, and they're just like out of range that they can't get supported by the other ones. They're like, oh no, what's going to happen? And this tank crew comes right up to him, jumps out. Like, we surrender, right?
Right.
Our one like broken tank. And so, like, we felt like we didn't take them seriously. But then 9/11 showed us,
right,
we have to take them seriously. We have to take, when they say they want to destroy America, we have to take them at their word. We can't just, we can try sanctions, we tried this thing, things like that. But if we ignore it endlessly, they will eventually, right? There's sleeper cells, Iranian sleeper cells in this country that they've arrested. I don't know if you've seen the reports about a sniper being detained. Iranian military things that if we don't take a weaker, like that, yes, we're vastly stronger militarily. Right. Like, if we met on the battlefield, there's no way Iran's military can stand against ours in a military to military battle. Right. Everybody knows that. They know that.
But asymmetrically.
But if we say because of that, we don't respect what they're doing as threats, we will get burned.
Right? Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have to take them seriously. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take them seriously ever.
Okay.
But I think that, like, the punishment should match the crime a little bit, right? Like, if someone's just blustering, like they've been saying death to America for 100 years, right? Nobody
that was pre 9/11 talk. After 9/11 prevention, right? You have to say, what's the acceptable, and I'll ask this to Eddie, what's the acceptable amount of Iranian terrorists attacking the US? Because Iran knows they can't defeat us militarily. All they can do is do terrorism. What is the acceptable number?
The acceptable number is zero, but the acceptable number of terrorist attack threats is higher than zero to me. To me, I'd say you can threaten me all day long. If you just want to talk tough, I don't give a crap.
Well, but I would say the number is a lot higher than zero. Here's
the other side, though. If you attack me, I go much further than where we're going right now. Because what's happening is, this is post 9/11. they've attacked many, many, many different targets. And we are only kind of like the biggest problem that we run into
They
in
shoot
today.
at our military ship. Well, Houthis.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, so the biggest problem with the way that people think today is they talk about this like proportionality. I think that's bullshit. With all respect, like that's not how you protect a nation. That's not how you win a war. That's not how you do anything, right? Like when they hit me, that would be it. I would end their regime, and it wouldn't be like, oh, we're just going to strike back here. It would be like, I'm sorry, you struck an American battleship. You are no longer going to have an.
Well, they captured an American ship and took soldiers hostage a few years ago, right? The Strait of Hormuz, right? So that was a test to see what we would do, and Biden this was not Trump failed that test.
Oh yeah,
and so they know they can push the Democrats around.
And he let like 1,200 like military-aged men into the nation from Iran. See, this is the problem, right? Like we wouldn't even be in it. We wouldn't have to worry about all these sleeper cells if we weren't just like everybody come in, But that's maybe another topic for another day. We've done immigration many times. One more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is the way that the media spins everything against Trump, of course, again, right? The moment that this strike went out, the first thing I was hearing is like, oh, Trump did this. He's authoritarian. He didn't talk to anybody. He didn't talk to Congress. Meanwhile, he talked to almost every single person in Congress. Like he might have missed like 3 or 4 people who were also informed secondhand. Like, where did that come from? He talked to the Congress. I don't know. Like he doesn't need Congress's permission. That's where I think people got lost in this mix, is like the media is spinning it so that like they're talking about like, Trump did this all on his own. I'm like, he's supposed to go read the Constitution again. Like that's what he's supposed to do. He's not supposed to like he's not supposed to call Eddie Palantonio up, even though I wouldn't mind if he did. I give him my advice, but and then the next one that came out was so Trump and Tulsi, they tried to manufacture this like game between them, right? So Tulsi, in her confirmation testimony, said that, quote, Iran is not, to the best of our knowledge, currently building a nuclear device, right? And so like fast forward several months, which by the way, that information is outdated anyway because it's several months old. Fast forward several months, they're like talking to Trump and they're like, did you know that your intelligence advisor is saying that Israel won't, or sorry, not Israel, Iran won't build a nuke? Which, first of all, is a misquote. That's not what she said. What she said was they're not currently building one, but they're like misquoting him. And then Trump's like, yeah, that's wrong, because of course it was wrong because they misquoted her. And it was old anyway, so it wouldn't matter even if they got the quote right, it wouldn't matter. Like this is what the media is trying to do. It plays all these games, and then it's crazy that I hear this from left-leaning pundits, and they like they've got something, like they've got this like magical bullet to like kill Trump with. They're like, huh, look at this. Even his own intelligence advisors against him. I'm like, no. No, like that's just wrong. I'm sorry. Go back and read the testimony manuscript. Go back and look at the Trump interview. And like they just don't want to do the work sometimes. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, for the common man, here's the thing, right? The media wants to spin this for the common man that there was conflict, that this wasn't well thought out, that this wasn't based on recent intelligence, that this wasn't a long-standing U.S. Department red line bipartisan issue. All that's there. Now, people are allowed to have different opinions about whether or not the action should have taken place or under what circumstances. Obviously, different leaders going to do that. Was it done legally? Yes. Is it launching a world war? No. Is there a chance that there'll be future aggression? Yes. This is the Middle East. Of course there's going to be future aggression in this until Iran affects their own regime change. And the one thing that I would hope for as a common man is that Iran's official government is weaker than any point they've been since 1979. that the people within Iran can affect and bring back leaders that just want to live in peace. That's all we want. We're not asking for the world here.
That's crazy talk. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that one 100%. And boy, yeah, the rumors that Iran has like salvaged some of their uranium. I mean, hopefully they can't.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they are.
Yeah. I'm sure they probably. I mean, nobody puts all their eggs in one basket, so I'm sure they have a routine of moving it around. But in any case, I pray that they use it responsibly and don't start a nuclear program, because if they do, it's just going to be more bloodshed. And, that's the last thing that anybody wants except for maybe them. Like I pray that they don't end their own lives through idiocy. But meanwhile, thanks guys so much for watching. It was a great to be back. I'm glad I'm back in the saddle, and I'll see you guys on Saturday. Thanks for coming to Common Mansplaining.
Yeah. Thank you. Keep it coming.
Keep it coming.